Nothing screams late 70s and 80s America quite like T-tops. They weren't just a car feature, they were a cultural symbol. From Corvettes to Camaros, Mustangs to Firebirds, everyone wanted them. And if your car didn't come with T-tops, don't worry, aftermarket shops would happily cut into your roof and add them for you. That's how crazy the T-top craze got. But just as fast as they rose, T-tops faded away. The question is, why? To answer that, we need to rewind history, all the way back to just after World War II. The T-top wasn't born in Detroit, nor in the golden era of muscle cars. Its roots actually trace back to 1948. A man named Gordon Burig, one of the greatest automotive designers of his time and former chief body designer at Duesenberg, came up with the design. He patented the T-top concept, and the first car to ever wear one was the Tasco prototype. Only one was ever built. And then silence. For 2 decades, nobody touched the T-top idea. Until 1968, when General Motors saw an opportunity. See, by the late 60s, convertibles in America were on life support. Sales were tanking. Why? Well, air conditioning was getting cheaper and more common. People didn't need to drop the top just to cool down anymore. Plus, convertibles came with problems: weaker chassis, noisy cabins, more risk of theft, and extra weight. There was even political pressure at the time, a rumored bill that sought to ban convertibles for safety reasons. While that never passed, the fear was enough to get automakers thinking. GM needed something new, something that could give buyers the open-air feeling of a convertible without all the drawbacks. Porsche had already launched the Targa Top in 1966, but that design was patented and trademarked. So GM took inspiration, and in 1968, the Chevrolet Corvette became the first production car to roll out with T-tops. And people went absolutely nuts for it. The T-top Corvette was sleek, sexy, and instantly cool. Sales soared. In fact, the convertible Corvette was discontinued altogether in 1976, partly because T-tops were dominating. And once the Corvette proved the concept worked, GM spread it across the lineup. By 1978, the Camaro got T-tops. Soon after, Pontiac rolled them out for the Firebird and Trans Am. Chevy even slapped them on the Monte Carlo. And then the floodgates opened. Other automakers saw the craze and jumped in. Ford put them on the Mustang II and the Fox Body Mustang. Dodge offered them on the Magnum and Aspen. Chrysler added them to the Cordoba. Even imports joined the party. Nissan, Toyota, Subaru, everyone wanted to in on the T-top wave. By the late 70s, America had gone full T-top mania. It wasn't just limited to factory builds either. Aftermarket companies popped up all over the country, offering T-top conversions for cars that never had them. Didn't buy a Camaro with T-tops? No problem. Pay a shop and they'd cut into your roof and add them for you. That's how intense the demand was. For many enthusiasts, T-tops became a status symbol. It didn't matter if you were driving a Corvette or a Subaru Brat. Having T-tops instantly made your car cooler. But just like every fad, the T-top frenzy wouldn't last forever. By the 80s, cracks, literally and figuratively, started to show. And that's where part 2 of the story begins, the fall of the T-top. By the early 1980s, the shine on T-tops started to wear off. What was once the coolest feature on the road was slowly turning into a headache for owners. The first big problem, well, leaks. Anyone who owned a T-top car back then will tell you it didn't matter how carefully you maintained those rubber seals, sooner or later, rainwater found its way in. People would keep towels on their seats or avoid taking their cars out if there was even a hint of clouds in the sky. The constant drip, drip, drip became part of the T-top ownership experience. Then there was the issue of noise. At highway speeds, those removable glass panels created wind whistles and rattles that never went away. What was supposed to feel like a convertible light experience often just felt like a compromise. For buyers who had once been thrilled by the freedom of popping those tops off, reality started to set in. Meanwhile, the convertible was quietly making a comeback. That rumored government safety ban on drop tops never materialized, and by the 80s, automakers figured out how to make convertibles stronger and safer than before. Mazda launched the Miata in 1989, and suddenly the pure joy of roofless driving was back in style. Consumers now had a real choice: a convertible that looked clean and didn't leak, or a T-top that whistled in the wind and soaked your seats in the rain. The answer became obvious. Another nail in the coffin came from within GM itself. In 1984, the Corvette introduced a new solution, the single-piece removable roof panel, better known as the Targa Top. Unlike T-tops, which left a bar running down the middle of the roof, the Targa was a cleaner design. It gave you a huge open-air feel without splitting the view in half, and it was easier to seal against leaks. Corvette buyers loved it, and slowly but surely, the Targa began to replace T-tops in the minds of performance car enthusiasts. By the 1990s, the T-top was starting to feel like a relic. While cars like the Camaro and Firebird still offered them, the list of cars you could buy with T-tops was shrinking fast. Chrysler dropped them, Ford moved away, imports abandoned them. Even GM began to phase them out.
The aftermarket shops that once thrived on cutting holes into car roofs began to close down as demand dried up. By the early 2000s, the end was near. In 2002, both the Chevy Camaro and the Pontiac Firebird were discontinued, and with them, the last production T-top cars disappeared from showrooms. Just like that, a feature that had once defined American car culture was gone. Of course, the T-top never truly died in the hearts of enthusiasts. For people who grew up in the 70s and 80s, T-tops are forever linked to freedom, rebellion, and style. Shows like Smokey and the Bandit and Knight Rider cemented them as icons of pop culture. Even today, when someone sees a classic Camaro or Trans Am with T-tops, it sparks instant nostalgia. But nostalgia aside, automakers have little reason to bring them back. Modern convertibles are safer, stronger, and more refined. Panoramic sunroofs give buyers a huge glass ceiling without compromising structure. And let's face it, nobody misses the leaks. The T-top then remains a symbol of its time, a fad that rose to massive popularity, captured a generation's imagination, and then vanished almost overnight. It's a reminder of how car culture constantly evolves. What feels cutting edge one decade can look outdated the next. But if you ever owned one, or even just rode in one on a summer night with the glass panels stored in the trunk, you know why people love them. T-tops may be gone, but their legacy is forever etched into automotive history.